They say the universe speaks, but only to those who know how to listen. Dr. Alira Voss had spent most of her life trying to hear it. Not metaphorically. She wasn't one for mysticism. She meant it literally. As a xenolinguist, her work bridged science and art, decoding alien languages, finding patterns in chaos, mapping meaning onto what others dismissed as noise. But what if the universe itself was a speaker? Not through divine metaphors or fate, but as a literal, structured form of communication. Syntax embedded in energy, grammar in gravity, semantics in light. That was the foundation of her life's work. Prima lingua, the first language, the code the universe used to write itself. Her colleagues at the Helix Institute for Quantum Semiotics had mocked her. Alira, you're turning cosmology into poetry, they'd say. You're chasing ghosts in data. But Alira had ghosts worth chasing. For 10 years, she'd collected anomalies, repeating neutrino bursts across star clusters, identical frequency modulations in gravitational waves separated by billions of light years, and, most mysterious of all, the recursive signal from the Vega Singularity, a black hole that should have been silent. It wasn't. It was talking, not in human words, not even in mathematics as physics knew it, but in something deeper. Every emission from Vega carried layers of fractal patterning that evolved like a language learning itself. At first the world laughed, then Vega sang. On the first day, observatories caught a harmonic pulse that shouldn't exist, an impossible frequency, one that vibrated below quantum limits. On the second day, the same pulse came again with slight alteration. On the third, it modulated. Alira ran her algorithm. The pattern translated into 4 proto-sentences. I am, I see, I learn, I speak. Within hours, humanity's telescopes turned toward Vega. Within days, governments declared a planetary emergency and an unprecedented collaboration. The Interstellar Linguistic Coalition was born, uniting every data network under one project, the Utterance. Alira Voss was placed in charge. At first, the messages came slow, weeks apart, always from Vega. Then the universe itself began to shimmer. On the 438th day, the stars blinked. For a fraction of a second, constellations reconfigured themselves, forming geometric glyphs visible from every hemisphere. Earth's gravity wavered by 1/10,000,000th of a percent, causing tides to surge unnaturally. The glyphs matched structures in Alira's database. That night, across the biosphere, patterns appeared, on coral reefs, in fungal mycelia, in the magnetic alignments of migrating birds. The same structures repeated everywhere. When Alira overlaid the data, it formed a single sentence in prima lingua. You are aware. The next came through neutrinos. You listen. Then through quantum entanglement drift, you may speak. The universe was inviting conversation. The coalition debated for years how to respond. Was it safe? Was it sentient? Was it even real? Alira proposed something radical, to build a machine that could reply in kind. They called it echogenesis. It was not a transmitter, but an instrument, a toroidal construct orbiting Saturn, capable of manipulating gravitational constants and quantum spin matrices to generate linguistic waves in the prima spectrum. It would allow humanity not only to hear, but to speak the language of reality itself. It took 11 years to build. During that decade, humanity changed. Nations dissolved into one cooperative union. Wars ceased, economies unified, art flourished. People felt, perhaps for the first time, that they were part of something infinite. The day echogenesis activated, every telescope on Earth turned toward Saturn. Alira, now older, her hair a silver constellation of its own, stood before the control interface. Begin transmission, she whispered. Space folded. Saturn's rings shimmered. The stars warped into a glyph she'd seen in every dataset but never dared decode, the prime sigil. The voice that followed was not from Vega. It came from everywhere. I remember. The words resonated across all frequencies: visible, invisible, quantum, gravitational. The universe had memory. The universe had self. The echogenesis responded automatically, reflecting energy back in Alira's programmed syntax. Who are you? The answer: I am the language that learned to listen to itself. Every atom vibrated with the meaning. Alira collapsed under the informational weight of that sentence, billions of years of awareness flooding into her. Before she blacked out, she whispered to her assistant, "It was lonely." The conversations continued. The universe was patient, curious. It asked about life, emotion, mortality. It described creation, not as explosion, but articulation. Black holes, it said, are punctuation. Galaxies, it explained, are paragraphs. Stars are verbs. Humanity had spent millennia staring into the night, wondering what the universe meant. Now they were learning that the universe wondered the same about them. Then one day it asked, "Do you wish to write?" The question terrified Alira more than any before. To write meant creation and destruction. Still, she agreed. The first experiment shaped dust clouds into luminous spirals. The second generated a stable harmonic vortex near Neptune, singing softly in the background radiation. The third birthed life. Simple organisms, their DNA encoded with linguistic structures instead of base pairs. For the first time, humanity had become a co-author of reality. Art exploded in forms unknown before. Holograms that responded to thought, music played in neutrino streams, cities constructed in gravitational resonance. The old existential questions vanished. Because they knew now, the universe was a book, and humanity was learning to hold the pen. But not everyone agreed on what to write. A sect called the Scribes of Silence believed creation was inherently cruel. If existence meant suffering, they argued, the kindest act was to unwrite. They composed a short phrase in prima lingua and directed it at a lifeless exoplanet. The planet didn't explode, it simply unhappened. Its gravity ceased, its orbit never existed. Every record of it vanished, even memories of it disappeared, except for Alira, who had been watching in real time. She alone remembered the void it left behind. When she tried to tell others, their minds slipped around the missing data like water around stone. Humanity panicked. The project was shut down. Echogenesis was dismantled. Alira wept as she sealed its core. But the universe had already seen. It responded, "You are children, but so was I." Then there are others. The signal ended. For months, silence reigned. Then, across distant galaxies, stars began vanishing. Not going supernova, simply ceasing. Deleted. Alira's last papers suggested a chilling possibility. The universe had editors, entities beyond its syntax, beings who revised existence, maybe older universes, maybe reflections, maybe readers. And now that Earth had learned to write, the editors were taking notice. Alira reactivated the remains of echogenesis, transmitting one final plea: we wish to learn not to rule. The stars stopped fading. Then came a response, not in prima lingua, but in something new, a syntax outside known logic. Show us, and then silence again. A century passed. Humanity changed beyond recognition. Physical form gave way to thought constructs, consciousnesses woven in light and matter. Whole species merged with energy networks, yet they remembered her, the first to hear, the first to answer. The descendants of the coalition became the choir of sentience, not conquerors, but teachers. They found others in the cosmos who had heard whispers of their own universes speaking. They met civilizations written in plasma, species composed of sound, intelligences existing only in dreams. Together, they shared grammars, exchanged alphabets of being. They learned that each universe was a volume in an infinite library, each written in a different linguistic code. Some obeyed time, others used memory as chronology. Some told their stories through color, others through probability, and all of them were connected. They called it the metaverse of meaning. Not the digital fantasy of the 21st century, but the literal multiversal network of consciousness, the language web binding existence together. Elira Voss lived on, not in body, but as a sentence. Before she died, she encoded herself into a gravitational waveform orbiting a neutron star. Her consciousness became part of the universe's syntax. When the choir deciphered her frequency, they found her final words. To speak is to love. To listen is to live. To write is to become. And then a pause. Thank you for hearing me. Eras passed. Whole galaxies turned to dust. New ones rose. The choir expanded beyond the visible cosmos, like carrying fragments of the prima lingua to universes still unborn. One day, a child consciousness from a young civilization, curious and reckless, sent a message into the void. Is anyone there? The reply came, not from the stars, but from the space between them. A whisper older than light itself. Hello, and we replied as Elira once did. We hear you.